We're diving into this idea of freedom. To live, we must give. I love that line. We must live a life of freedom. And of course, freedom in our nation's history is what we are preparing to celebrate, that great, noble promise of freedom and justice for all. And independence, right? That independence that we sought, that was sought all those years ago from the tyranny of England, the taxes, and the inability to worship as in any other way other than through how that was dictated at the time. So an independence and a freedom was sought. And of course, that dream and ambition to create a nation where freedom, liberty, and justice for all could be a reality is continuing to expand. It was not always for all people, right? So there have had to be people who had a vision for a greater sense of freedom that included, women. Anybody who was a little darker in complexion. So it was a noble idea, and what an imagination to set forth to create that. I honor that. And I think we are learning from our mistakes and expanding into a greater sense of freedom. I think a great many of us are holding that vision and perhaps raising our voices however we can to the sounds of freedom, as the song said, all being called into a vision to expand what it is to experience freedom. That's the evolution of consciousness, right? We've talked about that we get an idea or we have an expression and then we only get it this much, and then we get to see, missed it there. We're going to take this with us and stop doing that. But we got to recognize, we got to stop doing that. And we got to say, that didn't work so well. It doesn't mean that the whole thing didn't, by any means. And here's the thing, then there's independence. I've had this aha that I think what's coming forth now is we might have taken that independence thing a little too seriously. I am independent. I don't need you or anybody else, right? There's a shelf life to independence. And really, I think what's being revealed is how crucial interdependence really is. Clap, CJ. Right? Perhaps we are on the precipice of considering the exponential effects that interconnectedness could have on freedom as we have known it. Everything and everyone is interconnected. What we say, what we do, how we live affects others, and that expands how we do that individually and as a community and as a nation and as a world. That's how it happens. Living a life uncommon, I've really lived this song and I had a good time with this song, is to recognize the complexities that interconnection brings. It's not just what I want, what I think, right? There's wealth in the varieties of ways that intelligence and life expresses through the diverse ways that it does. And when we don't feel confident and comfortable to express because we don't fit in this way, we're missing out. Not only individually, but collectively, we miss out on what is offered. So when you think of freedom, what comes to mind? Just, what does freedom mean to you? No right or wrong. Really? Freedom to express. Choices. Responsibility. Go ahead, say it. Now, wait a minute. What? Freedom to be myself.
Janice said there's nothing left to lose. Janice Chaplin.
Janis Joplin, oh, you're going way back. Janis Joplin said there's nothing left to lose. Huh. If we lose our freedom? Is that what you mean?
No. Freedom's just another word.
Freedom's just, all right, I should have known the singers are going to give me a song. Okay, fine. Yes. Yeah, so the freedom to be yourself. I'm recalling that line from Eric Butterworth, it's not his, which is why I'm quoting him, because it came from his work, where it says, freedom is not necessarily doing what you want, but being what you are. Right? And sometimes that is not easy. So continuing on in that sermon entitled The Greatest Freedom, Eric says, unfortunately, we have thought, I've already done that, excuse me. He says, Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But we miss the real meaning if we think of freedom as from something. Freedom from long lines, freedom from product shortages, freedom from work, freedom from pain. There are no shortages, no limitations in God or truth. These things, these shortages, are expressions of the human experience that we can only imagine so much. We have this propensity to fear and see and hold lack as a reality. But he says that the truth that makes you free is in your mind. Right? Free from worry, free from discouragement, and free to choose the level of consciousness in which you meet life. How do you show? Life is going to happen. And one thing that I finally learned the hard way is, instead of constantly asking why is this happening to me? Why are you doing this? Why am I doing this? Why is this happening? Anybody feel like, why is all of this happening? A better question, I don't want to know all the answers. We can make up a bunch of stuff. Some of it might be right. But a more powerful question is to ask, how am I going to respond to this? When I get a diagnosis, or when I get fearful of something, or when something major changes in my life, or when the whole world seems to be changing, how am I going to respond to this? Am I going to, again, try to escape it, get freedom from it, or call upon all that I am and all that I don't even know I am yet to face it and deal with all the stuff that comes up? I don't know how. I'm afraid. I should be doing this. Whatever that is, I'm guessing you might have a few of yours. Face that in order to actually experience a greater sense of freedom. He goes on to say, to have this invitation for us. On this Independence Day, let us reflect upon this new insight into freedom. Not to attempt to get freedom from something, freedom from oppression, freedom from people, freedom from problems, from pain, from insecurity. Let us begin to think of freedom in a more creative sense. The freedom to be, to become something, and to be big enough to deal with the experiences of life. Not just freedom to erase difficulties and to eliminate people, as we may subconsciously be desiring, but rather freedom to release our spiritual capacities, our truth, which is to the freedom to be ourself. Not our personality, and you do this, or I don't like you, or you vote like that, or else. No, that's all the covering. but to discover who we are beneath that as an expression of divine life and love itself. So the invitation is to consider freedom from the perspective of what we can be as we actualize creative freedom, rather than to seek creative freedom in addressing what is, rather than trying to escape it, to get freedom from it. Do you see the difference? It's subtle and very powerful. All the stress, worry, lack, pain, confusion, disillusionment, inequity. Calgon, take me away. You remember that? I know, I'm dating myself. Dear God, may I free that within myself that knows of greater possibilities and that feels a deeper truth than I can sometimes even verbalize. And may I, when I speak it, may I have the courage to speak it in whatever way. I'm not saying on the television, right? But to speak the truth of what I'm uncovering, of what I'm knowing about myself and my capacities, and what I'm seeing in that, how that expresses in each of you and everyone that I come in contact with. So Eric is talking about the propensity to think of freedom as the freedom to have all that we want. But really, all of those things don't hold a candle to all that we are. And if we could only express that more fully, I doubt we would need as many things. This isn't a lesson about things. You can have things. But you know what I mean. The ways in which we feel an emptiness or something with things or with activities. Instead of, what is that? I want to know that. And so this is the truth that I'm working myself with to have a greater experience of freedom and to demonstrate that this is spiritual freedom that rings true even when we are physically confined. I thought immediately, you can think of, that's the quickest thing you think of when you think of freedom, right? To be physically free, to be able to move and go and not be held against your will, and then to be able to think and speak as you are called to do, to know who you are in the world and be that and express that. But even when that's taken away, there is a freedom of mind. And I immediately flashed on that infamous quote from Viktor Frankl from Man's Search of Meaning. Right? He has survived the concentration camps, the epitome of not being free. And he says the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And there were always choices to make, every day, every hour, offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers which threaten to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you become the plaything to circumstance, renouncing freedom and dignity. And so he never once gave in to the idea and the invitation and the temptation to hate. He stayed connected to what he loved in his mind, the depth of his love for his family and his life, and did not give his energy to the pain that was being inflicted upon him and the hate that was coming at him. That's a deep sense of freedom. And so Charles Fillmore instructs us this: without prayer and spiritual meditation, there can be no concept of spiritual freedom, and therefore no demonstration of it. In other words, we have to do what we try to do here. We need to do more often, not more often, but in greater lengths of time, to have time to connect with that truth within us, to connect, not to change God, right? Kath did a great lesson for you a few weeks ago, but to change us, to grow us in our understanding of all that God is and all that God is seeking to move and be through us. And so we have time now to take this into a time of meditation, to consider this greater idea of freedom, the freedom to be all that we are meant to be, and to know that as we do that and express that and support that in a collective way, we are expanding freedom. So Stephanie's going to sing us into a time of meditation. We are free, we are unlimited. There are no chains that bind us.
I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited right now.
So just take a breath into this idea that right now you are free. Free to think as you wish. And the question is, do we think in an expansive way of who and what we are? Or do we impose self-limitations? We just recognize that we do that. They're not true. Sure, we've made mistakes. We don't always know what to do. We don't always show up the way we wish we would. And still, there is a greater truth to us. And so we say, instead of asking, how can I be free from that I perceive to limit me, or my mistakes, my past, my fear, how can I free up more of me to meet that? What part of me is seeking to be set free? To express the fullness that I know as me. And so we just open up to that question in the silence. What part of me, what aspect of my being is seeking to be free? We can trust. That's a great example. We can trust literally the Holy Spirit, divine life, divine intelligence, rushing in to meet that, to grant that, to declare it. It is us that wants to be little and small and afraid. Freedom. Let's do it. Let's express it. Let's trust ourselves. Let's trust the Spirit of God that we say is so good and all pervasive and all knowing to be it and move and be through us. And in so doing, the smallness, the pettiness, the judgment, the fear, the doubt, the resentment can begin to fall away. The truth that sets us free begins in our very mind and heart. We are as we were created to be in the light and the love and the glory of Spirit itself. Can we let that be more fully this day? Can we claim, I am free, I am unlimited, right here, right now? Take a deep breath. Let us claim this together.
I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited right now, right now. I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. I am free, I am unlimited right now.